Sitting inside the private room were elites from all corners of Harbor City. By rough estimation, about 15 men had gathered tonight. The Zhou Corporation had completed its acquisition of the Lin Corporation. My father couldn't accept the fact that the Zhou family, who had risen to power through shady earnings, was now stepping all over us. 4 days ago, he jumped into the river and took his own life. While Leah Li was still mourning, I was dragged here by Justin Zhou under the outrageous excuse that we were getting engaged. I gave a bitter smile, so I was tonight's main course, after all. Justin Zhou failed to see the disgust and fury burning in my eyes. Instead, he tapped my wine glass with the hand wearing an engagement ring, signaling me to make a toast. "Thank you all for waiting," he said nonchalantly, lifting his glass. "I'll start by punishing myself with a drink." He stood up, wearing a serene, sycophantic smile, and continued. "Next, how about we have the Lin family heiress go around offering toasts and apologizing to everyone?" As soon as he said that, the atmosphere ignited. "Justin, you really know how to get things started," someone chuckled. "Starting off with such a big show, tonight's gonna be exciting." Why the hesitation? Looks like the Lin family's heiress is just as gorgeous as they say. My nerves were stretched to the limit. The words were on the tip of my tongue, but it felt like I'd suddenly gone mute. At this moment, anger overwhelmed even my despair. I slammed the wine glass down hard on the glass table, grabbed my purse, and spun around to leave in one fluid motion. Justin Zhou kept nodding and bowing to the guests, apologizing profusely, but he quickly chased after me. A sharp, clear slap echoed, causing my eardrums to buzz. It wasn't me who hit him, it was him who slapped me. Along with the slap came brute force, like he was dragging livestock. He threw me into the restroom. Blood dripped from the corner of my mouth onto my white dress. Justin Zhou threw a folder labeled Ida at my face, then lit a cigarette. "Fei Lin, you better learn your place," he sneered. "Do you still think you're the spoiled, reckless Lin family heiress you used to be?" These years, I had truly known nothing about the company's situation. Father had only mentioned minor funding issues, saying they would soon be resolved. But the 300 million yuan gap on the balance sheet was real, enough to drive someone to death. It was the Zhou family who had patched that massive hole. "I know exactly where your old man's buried," Justin said, smoke curling from his lips. "If you don't want his grave desecrated, you'll do exactly as I say." A cunning glint flashed across his face. "Tonight, whoever bids the highest becomes your fiancé." After a few minutes, a female server brought in a set of clothes and some makeup supplies. Looking at the battered girl in the mirror with colorless skin and bloodshot eyes filled with endless despair, I realized I was crying. It was clear now. Justin Zhou was determined to sell me off. He had even prepared a battle outfit, a transparent lace ballet costume that barely covered anything. Later, I was carried back to the main table of the private room. Justin Zhou motioned for the staff to turn off all the lights, leaving only a spotlight shining on the center of the table. "Miss Lin learned ballet from a young age. She's very flexible," he said, his face appearing even more sinister under the dim light. "She's offering a dance to entertain everyone tonight." The entire room was devoured by lust. Eyes that should have held morality and reason instead fixated on the semi-transparent outfit clinging to my body. Even the bright red lipstick smeared on my lips had become an accomplice. When fear, helplessness, rage, and despair all crash down at once, the brain blanks out. Just like a princess being offered as a hostage to appease a conquering king. For a fleeting moment, I thought about throwing myself out of the third-floor window and ending it all. Maybe I could reunite with Father down there. But knowing the Zhao family's ruthless ways, even if I died, they wouldn't let me off that easily. Underneath the table, no one cared that my dance was mechanical and stiff. Even my tears dripping onto the table were nothing more than entertainment to them. They sent out waves of excitement, one after another, like leopards fighting to win a mate. 10 million. 20 million. 50 million. 90 million. 200 million. The room fell silent. Everyone turned to look at the man who had just offered 200 million. The way he stared at me, as if he already owned me, made me sick to my stomach. 200 million once. 200 million twice. I stared blankly at the bidder, He was about my father's age, slightly balding, with a beard that looked like it hadn't been shaved in a long time. Underneath his greasy, unfit body, an obscene bulge had already formed. I didn't want to resist. I couldn't resist. I could only close my eyes and wait for Justin Zhao's final words. 200 million. 500 million. Before Justin could finish his sentence, a powerful voice overwhelmed him. The door to the private room swung open. A man dressed in black strode straight toward me. I couldn't see his face clearly. The harsh lighting stung my eyes. The man scooped me off the table in one swift motion. The warmth of his black overcoat even covered my head, cocooning me completely. His body was warm, steady, with not a single unnecessary movement. He turned slightly toward Justin Zhao and coldly tossed out a single sentence. "The money's already been wired to your account." The entire room fell into stunned silence. I had no idea who this man was. All I knew was that he seemed even more terrifying than anyone else present. My body instinctively struggled, but I was so close to collapse that I didn't have any strength left. To the man, my feeble resistance was nothing more than a minor, playful scuffle. After we left the private room, the man leaned down, his mouth close to my ear through the thick coat, and whispered, "Save your strength, there's still a lot to do tonight." By the time we arrived at his house, it was already deep into the night. Without a word, he ordered his servants to place my black cloaked body onto the sofa. Then he spoke, his voice cold and low. "Still hiding? Planning to have me sleep with a bundle of cloth tonight?" Honestly, I was terrified. On the way here, I had imagined countless worst-case scenarios. Was he planning to feed me to wild dogs in the wilderness? Was he going to sell me off overseas? Or was he going to lock me away and keep me captive? But I was too exhausted. Even if all those nightmares turned out to be true, what difference did it make? After tonight, I was already broken beyond repair. Lost in those thoughts, I drifted into a half-conscious sleep. When I woke up, I was startled awake by his sharp scolding, my whole body drenched in cold sweat. Even though I had mentally prepared myself, when I finally peeked my head out of the coat, I was completely stunned. He looked nothing like I had imagined. He wasn't fierce, wasn't grotesque, wasn't disgusting. He was stunningly handsome, almost to the point of being called exquisite. The man sat lazily on the sofa, half squinting as he watched me, his gaze filled with intense control. His left hand rested casually on his muscular thigh, the tailored suit pants stretched slightly by the firm muscles underneath. His right hand swirled a glass of whiskey, the sound of ice clinking against the glass echoing like the thundering of my heart. So these were the long, powerful fingers that had carried me off the table, strong and defined. "Drink it," he commanded, his words few and every sentence carrying the weight of an order. "Come here. Sit on my lap." I didn't dare meet his eyes. As I moved to sit on his lap, my gaze darted around uncontrollably. "Is this how you usually dress when you practice martial arts?" he asked, his slender fingers trailing down from the nape of my neck toward my chest. "No, it's not like that," I stammered. "It was. They forced me to wear this." It suddenly hit me. I hadn't spoken for nearly 5 hours. The stammering only made him chuckle, amused. "You're that scared of me?" he asked. I nodded slightly, testing the waters. Suddenly, a pair of strong hands gripped the back of my neck. Before I could react, his lips pressed against mine. From the sofa to the kitchen, to the desk, to the balcony, he kissed me relentlessly all the way to the bathroom. I was gasping for air, dizzy and overwhelmed. My lips were swollen and red from the relentless assault. "You like this outfit that much?" he teased, his voice low and dangerous. Even in my hazy mind, I understood his real meaning. He wanted me to take the damn thing off. He loosened the grip he had around my waist, leaning back slightly with his right hand propping up his chin, his eyes glinting with amusement as he silently ordered me to get moving. I didn't dare disobey. Even my hands, which I had been using to shield my chest, were swiftly grabbed away by him. I didn't dare to look directly at him. Button by button, the tight costume popped open, revealing the toned muscles of his chest underneath. He watched with great interest through the mirror, admiring the smooth curve of my back, the perfect line running down to my hips. He pressed me against the sink, the veins in his arms bulging with tension. I knew very clearly, this time, there was no escape. Just before he entered, I whispered almost inaudibly, "Can you?" Be gentle? No, he replied. When I woke up the next day, it was already noon. After the nightmare of last night, it felt as if my soul had died. But the sharp pain radiating from my waist yanked me harshly back into reality. Holding my aching body, I stumbled to the dining table, where a servant had brought food for me. But I had no appetite. One glance at the untouched dishes, and I turned away, walking slowly toward the bathroom. Suddenly, the phone in the living room rang. The same cold, deep voice from last night came through. Come eat. Last night had been so chaotic that I hadn't even gotten a good look at this house. Now when I looked up, I spotted 3 surveillance cameras right away. Everything that had happened last night was real. Maybe it was fear of the Zhou family's power, or maybe it was because I had finally found a lifeline. I didn't want to leave the man from last night. I wanted him to help me take revenge. After forcing myself to swallow a few bites of food, my phone lit up. It was Justin Zhou. That bastard still dared to call me? After I rejected the call 5 times, he sent me a message. It was a video of me dancing from last night. The text that followed said if I didn't want the video leaked online for everyone's entertainment, I'd better call him back immediately. When I finally picked up, the background noise was loud and chaotic. Justin Zhou's voice was hysterical, almost maniacal. Fei Lin, you really outdid yourself. You managed to hook up with Harbor City's newest, richest man, Colin Gu. Colin Gu? The man from last night was Colin Gu? I had heard of him before. A ruthless businessman, rarely seen in public, but someone my father used to praise often. Back then, Colin Gu had been just a dock worker. Now he was the wealthiest man in Harbor City. Fate was truly bizarre. Just days ago, I had been the proud Lin family heiress. Now I was nothing more than a battered, broken shell. I didn't really hear the rest of the disgusting insults Justin Zhou spewed after that. The only thing that stuck in my mind was his final threat before hanging up. Prepare 50 million. Bring it to the docks by Friday night. If you're late, that video's going viral. As I hung up, something else from that call stuck with me. I thought I heard a girl crying for help in the background. Thinking back carefully, I realized the Zhao family had always been involved in filthy deals down at the docks. Why had I ever thought Justin Zhao was manly? It was back when I was in my first year of high school. In June, Harbor City entered the blazing summer faster than most places. Because I was angry with my father, I refused to let the driver pick me up that day. Wearing nothing but my thin practice clothes, I made my way home from the martial arts school alone, passing near the Zhou family's docks. That's where it happened. 4 or 5 thuggish blonde men cornered me, herding me into a narrow alley made from stacked shipping containers. I didn't even dare to breathe, clutching my backpack tightly to my chest. Trembling, I stammered out, My dad is the chairman of the Lin Corporation. If you let me go, he'll give you whatever you want." The thugs exchanged looks and whispered among themselves. "Brothers, this is our big break. Whoever gets the Lin family heiress pregnant becomes their son-in-law." Their evil laughter made my lips tremble uncontrollably. "Every man for himself," one of them joked, unbuckling his belt. The others followed suit, advancing toward me step by step. I cried, screamed. No one came to help. The leader of the thugs tried to yank the backpack from my chest. In desperation, I bit down hard on his arm. Furious, he punched me to the ground. My glasses shattered. My heart shattered with them. As my mind buzzed and consciousness began slipping away, a figure dropped from the top of a container, like a hero descending from the sky. With a powerful spinning kick, he sent the leader sprawling. I thought I even heard the crack of breaking bones. The rest of the thugs, terrified, dragged their injured boss away and fled. The boy carried me to a hospital. He didn't come to see me again in the following days. I only recognized him when I returned to school during a basketball game. After scoring, the boy from the neighboring class blew a whistle at me from the stands. It was Justin Zhao. Even though I never said it out loud, deep down, I had quietly decided, one day I would marry him. But when rumors of us dating reached my father, he exploded. Despite the Zhou family's wealth, my father always believed they were rotten to the core. When his attempts to persuade me failed, he sent me overseas out of anger. That was how we broke up. And when I returned home, everything that led to yesterday happened. That evening, when Colin Gu returned home, he immediately scooped me up and carried me into the bedroom. His boundless energy honestly frightened me. Tonight, he looked very different from yesterday. Gone was the slick hairstyle set stiff with gel. Instead, his bangs hung naturally over his deep, piercing eyes. Without the sharp edge of a custom-tailored suit, he now wore a loose gray hoodie and sweatpants that suited his youthful, delicate features even more. He had shed some of his coldness, now carrying a hint of youthful innocence. Last night had been too dark, and I had been too tense, too ashamed to really look at his face. Who would have thought that the timid, trembling girl from last night was now bold enough to reach out and cup his face in her hands? "Colin, can you transfer 50 million to me?" I asked carefully. Was it just my imagination? Or did the coldness in his eyes suddenly light up, like a loyal golden retriever waiting for its master's command? "You know who I am?" he asked, a hint of curiosity under his cool tone. I chuckled mockingly. "Is there anyone in Harbor City who doesn't know about you, the richest man around?" Of course he was the top billionaire. The light gradually dimmed again, replaced by another night of fierce, uncontrollable passion, just like last night. After a long, intense kiss, he suddenly paused. His voice remained emotionless, chilling as he spoke. "That punk from the Zhao family said you're pretty good in bed. Did you try this position with him too?" I opened my eyes, unsure whether he was angry or teasing me. "My first time was yesterday," I said in a low voice. "In the bathroom, with you." Flustered, I turned my head away. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw a bead of sweat drip from Colin Gu's lowered eyelashes onto my body. A few days later, I went to the docks at the agreed time. But there was no sign of Justin Zhao. It wasn't until evening that a patrolling security guard approached me and said he had been in a car accident. His entire body suffered comminuted fractures, multiple trauma wounds to the skull. Several fingers were missing. One eyeball was gone. He was currently in the ICU, hanging onto life by a thread with the help of machines. The police had found unspeakable items hidden under the back seat of his car, and traces of banned substances in his blood and hair samples, which meant that even if he survived, he would go straight from the hospital to prison. The initial police report suggested he had hallucinated, self-harmed, and deliberately crashed his car. But only I knew. Even if the Zhou family's business was dirty, Justin Zhou would never touch that kind of stuff. When I rushed back to Colin Gu's house, he was already home. He sat on the sofa with his back to me, holding a glass of whiskey packed with ice. The cold air around him was suffocating. Before I could speak, he said flatly, "I did it. How could he? How could he treat a life so casually?" Which version of him was real? The hero who had saved me from hell? The gentleman who let me sleep soundly every night with my head on his arm? Or the ruthless Harbor City tycoon who treated human lives like dirt? I didn't want to think about it anymore. I sighed, turned around, and started putting my heels back on. I just wanted to escape. I didn't know when he had gotten up and moved behind me. Before I could open the door, he grabbed me hard and pinned me against it. "You love him that much?" he growled. "Justin Zhao? What makes him so worthy of your love? What about me?" His voice grew colder, darker. "Not just him. Every man who saw you that night, none of them will get away." I didn't know how much he had drunk before I got home. The hands that used to stroke me gently now became weapons, digging painfully into my skin. Colin Gu gripped my chin so hard it hurt, then forced the whiskey down my throat straight from the bottle. After that night, we didn't speak for a week. He never came back. Only the servants delivered meals on schedule. I kept the curtains drawn all day, didn't watch TV, didn't touch my phone. Most of the time, I just stared blankly at the ceiling. Eventually, even the signal to the surveillance cameras got cut off. Was he never coming back? Without his help, could I ever get my revenge on the Zhou family? Obviously not. While I was filling the bathtub, the doorbell rang. Struggling out of the water, coughing and gasping for breath, I stumbled to the door, slipping and crawling across the floor. But the person standing outside, who was she? A woman, refined and elegant, stood before me. She was the complete opposite of my soaking, disheveled self. Her hair was neat and perfect, not a strand out of place. The water dripping from my palms onto the floor echoed loudly in the silent standoff. Finally, she spoke with a soft smile. Hello, I'm Tiana Chen, Colin Gu's fiancé. She walked right past me, with the poise of a rightful lady of the house, stepping into the space where Colin and I had once lived so passionately. She glanced at the moldy food left on the dining table, covered her mouth with a delicate hand, and let out a soft, mocking laugh. Looks like you're not exactly the model housewife, are you? Her voice was sweet, but every word was laced with poison. You probably don't know, she added casually, but on that dining table, Colin and I tried out countless different positions. After touring the room, she traced her fingers along the edge of the sofa and sat down in Colin's favorite spot, the place where he always handled paperwork. He used to sit there late into the night, canceling in-person meetings just to keep me company when I was spiraling into madness. The 8 a.m. sunlight would always filter obediently through the windows, shining gently across his handsome nose bridge. If you looked closely enough, you could see tiny golden hairs floating in the light, dancing in the air. He looked mesmerizing when he focused. Sometimes, when he was exhausted, he would nod off slightly, his body swaying softly under the shifting sunlight. He reminded me of a Roman warrior, descending through the ages, cutting through thorns just to rescue broken little me. But I had always been blind to it. I would push him away arrogantly, refusing to acknowledge what I truly needed. I needed someone's help. But I didn't want to fall for Colin Gu. Back when I was overseas, I heard rumors that Colin had spent $500 million buying some young girl to keep at home like a doll. Tiana Chen's harsh voice yanked me back to reality. Doesn't matter if you're a house-trained pet or a wild one. If you can be set free, good. If not, roasting you alive has its own flavor. Was she threatening me? Honestly, after everything I had been through, fear was no longer something I felt. All I thought was, how stupid it was for her to reveal her cards so early. Miss Chen, you should leave, I said calmly. I'll stay here as long as I can. As for you calling yourself the mistress of this house, sorry, I'm also the fiancé. I smiled coldly. And honestly, it's way cuter being a free-spirited stray dog than a mad dog pissing all over someone else's territory. Tiana Chen was left speechless, frozen by my smooth, relentless comeback. Fuming, she grabbed her bag and slammed the door behind her. Before she left, she warned, "Don't get cocky. One day, I'll kick you out of here." Fine, I thought. I'll be waiting. As I closed the door, a sudden clarity washed over me. I didn't want to die anymore. I was going to fight. I would fight all of them to the bitter end. What I didn't know was, Colin Gu had secretly turned on one of the hidden cameras. He had watched the entire confrontation and was now chuckling softly to himself. The next morning, the doorbell rang again. Having gotten up early to carefully do my makeup and eyebrows, I was ready this time. No way was I losing again. As soon as I opened the door, a big bear lunged at me, almost knocking me over. "Faye, I missed you so much." What the hell? It had only been a few days, but Colin Gu's entire persona had shifted. Wasn't he usually cold and stoic at times like this? Today, he was like a giant puppy, burying his face into my chest and clinging to me shamelessly. Tiana Chen, who must have still been lurking nearby, witnessed the whole scene. Colin even freed one hand that had been wrapped around my waist to shut the door behind him. I had to admit, I missed those strong, warm hands of his too. When he tugged me slightly closer, I leaned right into him. He still towered over me as he gazed down, but this time, the chill in his eyes was gone. From 10 in the morning until 3 in the afternoon, our wild, tangled celebration didn't end. When we finally stopped, I lay exhausted on his chest, listening to our synchronized heartbeats. It was so close, so real. Sometimes he would gently pat my back, comforting me the way someone might soothe a baby. His fingers played with my hair, damp with sweat. I watched his brows gradually knit together from relaxation into concern. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I'm sorry for everything." "It's okay," I murmured. Back then, I didn't understand what exactly he was apologizing for. All I knew was, from that moment on, he would protect me. We curled up together and talked for a long time. That's when I realized I didn't really know this man at all. He wasn't just a ruthless executioner I could use for revenge. He was a wounded soul, too. His coldness wasn't arrogance. It was the shield of someone with no family backing him. In this world, if you weren't ruthless enough, you got trampled. Tiana Chen's father had once sponsored him to study abroad with no need for repayment, as long as he agreed to become their family's son-in-law. He lay lazily with his head resting on my lap, speaking softly about everything that had happened to him over the years. His voice wove between lightness and melancholy. The good and the bad, I accepted them all. For that moment, it had nothing to do with my thirst for revenge. I just wished we could be like two specks of dust, floating freely in this vast world, with no one watching us, judging us. But I was too naive to think that winning against Tiana Chen would be the end of it. The real war was only just beginning. A few days later, the real blow came. The video of me dancing was still leaked online. It spread across the internet almost instantly, exploding like a bomb. The media, desperate for clicks, began writing sensational, irresponsible headlines. Heiress twists and grinds in seductive moves. Top billionaire splurges $500 million for her. Lynn Harris's sultry dance shocking scene. Daytime angel, nighttime vixen. Even worse were the comments, each one stabbed into my chest like a dull, rusty knife. The pain made it hard to breathe. As expected, the rich play their games differently. I couldn't even imagine a scene like this in my dreams. The Lin family's so-called purity, what a joke. Who knows how many shady deals they've been hiding. Look at her, working it so hard, bet she's a seasoned pro. Think she's a virgin? Ha! With moves that skilled, not a chance. Enjoy, boys. Harbor City's richest man sure has a taste for sloppy seconds. Ha ha ha. The phrase, "Don't judge without knowing the full story," was absolutely meaningless to these people. My hands trembled uncontrollably as I clutched my phone. I couldn't stop myself. I kept clicking, reading one cruel comment after another. Screenshots of my most humiliating moments were turned into memes, fueling their mad, depraved slut-shaming. Colin Gu stormed over, yanked the phone from my hands, and immediately cut off all the internet access in the house. He pulled me tightly into his arms, squeezing me as if he could absorb all my pain into himself. When I looked up, I saw something I had never seen before. Those deep, impenetrable eyes of his were clouded with dark, heavy sorrow. "Don't worry. I'll handle this," he said firmly. "For now, just rest at home." He planted a lingering kiss on my bloodless lips, then slammed the door behind him and left, radiating fury. But it wasn't long before my home address was exposed. Even though I lived in a private penthouse where only authorized people could access the elevators, the other residents weren't so lucky. People swarmed to the building like zombies, venting their rage at a random neighbor's door downstairs. They left funeral wreaths, dog feces, human feces. Some even cruelly sealed the family's door with industrial-strength glue. Enraged, Colin Gu bought the entire building in one move. He hired top-tier security, posting guards at every entrance around the clock. No one could enter without going through multiple checks. But that move only fueled the internet's hatred of the rich. An anonymous online campaign to hunt the rich sprang up, and within an hour, it had been shared and discussed over 100 million times. Not long after that, Tiana Chen contacted me. I didn't tell Colin. I snuck out on my own. The meeting place was a nearly abandoned cafe, hidden away from the public eye. If no one introduced you to it, you'd never find it. When I pushed open the door, Tiana was already there, still wearing that delicate, harmless smile. I didn't bother with pleasantries. I got straight to the point. She set down her coffee cup without even looking at me. "You really think he'll marry a woman who's been used and discarded by so many men?" she said coolly. Of course I knew. He meant Colin. "Take a good look at yourself. No man wants to take in a used-up whore." She flung a pile of photos toward me. But those weren't me. They were fake. One thing I had learned from being with Colin Gu was how to endure humiliation. The sharp sting of my nails digging into my palms helped me stay clear-headed. "You must be so proud," I said, voice steady, "to be raised into a daughter like this. No wonder your father's used to places like these, too." Finally, I snapped. The coffee cup in my hand splashed across Tiana Chen's face, soaking her dress and my own in the process. I didn't even know how much force I used. All I knew was I wished it hadn't been coffee, but boiling magma. "You can insult me all you want," I hissed, "but I'll never let you insult my father." If Tiana's goal today had been to enrage me, well, congratulations, she succeeded. From the moment I walked in until I stormed out, I didn't say another word. Only my fists spoke. And just as I expected, the entire encounter had been a trap. The next day, Tiana held a press conference. With her face still swollen and bruised from our fight, she stood before every major media outlet in Harbor City. Sobbing pitifully, she accused me of being a vicious, arrogant mistress who had bullied her mercilessly. Those carefully prepared photos Tiana had shown were exactly of my supposed assault from yesterday. I knew it. There was no way anyone could find that hidden cafe without someone leading them there. The angles and clarity of the photos were far too professional. Amid the chaos, all the media cameras suddenly swung to focus on someone else. The livestream's comment section exploded. OMG, it's the real Colin Gu. Kya, he's here for his real fiancé. So sweet, I'm swooning. Boss Gu is so powerful. Support him. Down with that shameless Lin family mistress. Why does Boss Gu's gaze look murderous? Colin snatched the microphone out of Tiana's hand, cutting off the giant screen that was looping footage of my so-called battle performance. He spoke calmly, his voice even. I didn't want to waste public resources to deal with private matters. But since Miss Chen is so eager to bring everything into the light, let's end this quickly. After saying that, he turned to glance at Tiana. His gaze was filled with pure disgust. The crowd gasped as if a thunderbolt had struck them. I stared at my phone screen, hand clamped tightly over my mouth to keep myself from crying out loud. But the tears had already blurred my vision, streaming down uncontrollably. The boy in the pictures, the one covered in bruises and wounds, his head half-shaved, crawling naked and shivering through the snow, was that really Colin Gu? The boy shackled at the wrists and ankles, filthy slurs scrawled all over his bare skin. Was that really him? I couldn't bear to look anymore. I threw the phone aside, sobbing uncontrollably in the silent room. Through my cries, I could still hear his voice coming quietly from the phone's speaker. Compared to the things I endured at the Chen family, these pictures are just the tip of the iceberg. He said it so lightly, as if the boy in the photos wasn't even himself. But facing such brutal memories, surely even he must have broken down at some point, right? And yet to protect me, he had exposed even the darkest corners of his past without the slightest hesitation. I just want everyone to know. His voice said, this woman is not my fiancée, she's a murderer. As soon as he finished, the live stream was cut off. A second later, my phone rang. You must be scared, Colin said gently. I miss you. We just hugged tightly for 2 whole hours without saying a word. I reached out, carefully touching the faded scars on his body. Love and heartbreak swelled in my chest. Does it still hurt? I asked, tears brimming in my eyes. Colin, who always tried to appear strong, finally crumbled. No one had ever asked him if he was in pain. He only knew how to charge forward blindly, because if he ever stopped for even a moment, he would be dragged back into the nightmare he had fought so hard to escape. He was about to shatter. I hugged the broken boy in front of me tightly, as if holding him together could save him. The 15-year-old Colin Gu and the 28-year-old Colin Gu, both of them were finally rescued. 3 days later, news of Tiana Chen's imprisonment dominated the headlines. Several officials and businessmen who had participated in that night's auction were also arrested. As for Justin Zhou, he had long since become irrelevant. One morning, like always, Colin sat quietly on the sofa, conducting a conference call with his employees. I tiptoed over to him, climbed into his lap without warning, and flirted. Boss Gu, what do you want for breakfast? The manager on the other end quickly hung up in embarrassment. Without another word, Colin immediately tried to pin me down and devour me like a starving wolf. I pressed my fingers to his lips, stopping him, and burst out laughing. God, he was so adorable when he was flustered. Boss Gu, come with me this afternoon to visit my dad, I said sweetly. You'll have to feed me first. Colin smirked mischievously, then threw me down with the unstoppable force of a landslide. His laughter carried a hint of punishment, as his hands roamed mischievously across every inch of my trembling body. Between struggling and giving in, we finished our morning exercise for the day. Later, when we arrived at the cemetery, Colin went to park the car while I went ahead to buy offerings. My father's grave was on the mountaintop. But even before we reached it, I could see fresh flowers piled high in front of his tombstone. My mind filled with confusion. Besides me and Justin Zhao, no one should have known where my father was buried. A woman, who looked like one of the cemetery's caretakers, approached us smiling. Boss Goo, you're here again today, she said warmly. Could it be those flowers were all from Colin Goo? After we finished the ritual, Colin finally spoke, his voice soft and full of guilt. Faye, I'm sorry I kept it from you, he said, his hand pressing lightly on my shoulder, his eyes filled with sincerity. Back when I was 15, I worked at the Zhou family docks. The Chen family came there to pick workers to send overseas. My mother was the only family I had, and she was gravely ill, so I had no way to refuse their offer of high wages. Maybe he didn't want me to see his vulnerability. As he spoke, Colin Goo suddenly turned his back to me. His figure was tall, yet looked so thin and lonely. When I got overseas, he continued, I realized everything was different from what they had promised. It turned out that the so-called high-paying job was just being a pet for some powerful man with a twisted fetish. I refused to be a blood bag by day and a beaten, half-dead punching bag by night. Watching his trembling back, I couldn't hold back anymore. I wrapped my arms tightly around him from behind. I wanted him to feel my warmth, to know he wasn't alone anymore. After a few minutes, Colin slowly turned around. Tears streamed down his face. He tried hard to steady his voice and finish his story. After they squeezed every last bit of value from me, they tossed me half dead onto the street. That winter was so cold. It was Mr. Lin who found me. He threw a black coat over me, took me to the hospital, brought me back home, gave me a job, but by the time I got home, my mom was already gone. And by the time I had enough strength to protect the people who mattered, Mr. Lin was gone too. I broke down completely, crying alongside him. Only then did I realize, that night when he saved me, wasn't a coincidence. After my father died, Colin had secretly sent people to protect me every day. The moment he got the news, he rushed straight to the hotel from the airport. He barely made it in time, but what he saw was me, trying to please those murderers with my broken body while my father's body was still cold. That's why he had taken out all his rage on me that night. It turned out my father's death wasn't an accident either. He had accidentally discovered the dirty dealings between the Zhou family and the Chen family. They retaliated by forcing Lin Corporation into collapse. They drove my father into a dead end. It was Justin Zhou who personally pushed him into the freezing river, staging it as a suicide brought on by business failure and debt. And Tiana Chen, she knew that Colin's past overseas was the darkest scar he could never heal. She thought she could use that to control him, believing that marrying the richest man in Harbor City would secure her life forever. But what she didn't know was, in Colin Goo, Goo stood for unshakable righteousness, and Chen stood for spotless purity. A gust of wind blew by, silver ginkgo leaves fell gently onto Colin's hair, one after another. I tiptoed up, plucked a perfect leaf from his hair, and placed it tenderly into his palm. Autumn's here already, I said softly. Later that year on the first snowy day, it also happened to be my birthday. But Colin was stuck at work. Worse, he had the nerve to say, "It's faster if you deliver the documents yourself rather than sending the secretary twice," and made me come bring paperwork to him. Honestly, even after living in this house for more than half a year, except for the times we tangled together intimately, I had never really set foot in his study. "Faye, the files are in the third drawer under the desk," he said over the phone. "Which side? Left or right? Be clear," I grumbled just before he hung up. Seriously, what kind of file needed the great me to fetch it personally? I opened the third drawer on the left and quickly found the folder. "Humph, that was easy," I muttered. Then a mischievous little thought popped into my mind. What's in the third drawer on the right? Inside, lying quietly, was a pair of old black-framed glasses. One arm was broken, the left lens shattered. The style was outdated, rustic. I quietly closed the drawer again. Snowfall in Harbor City was breathtaking. A thin layer of ice formed over the river. Colin parked the car near the riverbank. We wrapped ourselves in a blanket and found a spot sheltered from the wind. "Happy birthday, Faye," he whispered. "I love you." We huddled together, holding lit sparklers in our hands. Under the gentle glow, Colin looked devastatingly handsome. As the fireworks burned out, I snuggled deeper into his arms. "Actually, you fell for me when you were 15, didn't you?" I teased. Colin didn't answer. Instead, he just rested his chin lovingly on top of my head and chuckled softly. At some point, a ring slid onto my finger. Let's get married, he whispered. I answered without hesitation.